questions? Okay. Hearing none. And feel free to let me know if you do have them. Let's kind of go back. Let me see if I can do a slideshow and the chat room at the same time. Oh, the pick herring eggs verb. Because the herring eggs are coming. Okay, let's do a little digging around. So one thing that you could do, if you get questions about things in Tlingit, is a good place to start is the Verb Dictionary. Tons of really good phrases and things out there. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll look for herring. We'll just see what comes up. So here's kashichat is to cook herring eggs by dipping. So it's called blanching. And atluch is for them to spawn. It's for herring specifically to spawn. Yachak. So there's a verb for put the branches down. And so again, if we go back and we see the spawn up here, and so there's times where they're kind of guessing on the transitivity. So let's do a little recap. So when Nation Story put TR in there after the verb, what does that mean? Yeah, it's transitive. Yep. So there is an object and a subject. So you know it's going to go, in this case, and so usually you're going to get, like say this one here is transitive, to drink up the last of something. So you know there's an object, ka, subject, L group classifier, and so this one they think it's transitive, so there's a question mark. And the ST, what is the ST part? What is that one? So we have transitive. What's the next one? This one here. Statement, that's a good guess. So it was stative is what they call it. And nowadays we would call that object intransitive. So when you see the ST, that means there is an object here, but no subject. When you see the IN, it means there's a subject and no object. So this one is to close your eyes. This one is for eyes to be closed. Slightly different. So here's well, let's look up the put down the branches, and then we'll find the pick the herring eggs one. So it's really interesting when you find specific verbs for things. Like there's one for cleaning the guts out of a fish, and here's another one for putting those branches down. So we're going to go look for put, and it's right here. So we see nich awachak. He or she put down hemlock branches for herring to spawn on. Shaseyi an nijik akwachak akwachak. And so this tells you there's probably an object and a subject. It would make sense. And one thing we can do is we can take a look at Jeff Lear's notes and see if he has anything on it. I mean, if you work with a speaker and you're trying to get a verb and the verb is not in the right kind of modes, the one thing you want to try and get is the command form. And once you get the command form, you can kind of usually get the rest. if you can, get them to give you command form, perfective, and if there's an imperfective, that's always nice, but you should be able to figure out most of it once you get that. So we're going to look up and we're going to find that verb root here in Jeff Lear's verb notes. So here's the L apostrophe L-A, and we get to put down. So he or she is putting him down. And then he has in parentheses here N. That means it's a na conjugation class. So there you would guess, you would say nach'aq, put them into the water as a command form. I don't know if there's anything else with that verb. And so there's that one. So that gives us awach'aq, to put down branches. And let's just keep looking for more hearing stuff. Here's the dipping in the oil. So similar thing, we could probably see what forms this one is in. So we're going to look up go down here. I don't think he has underlined X's, so we're not able to find that one. Okay. Wither. And so we see the kashiqat for a verb to cook, but then it's the same verb for something to wither. Kashiqat. And so this, once you see this, kashiqat, it's a perfective because we hear the kaush, and then it's a zero conjugation because it's short and high. So this is how we're able to sort of put this stuff together based on what we've been looking at. Here's to reflect light. Kaushashik, same thing. It's a zero conjugation because we see it's perfective and zero, and when we get those two things, we know that we've got zero conjugation. Tied hemlock branches together for hemlock to spawn on, a kausayi. So that's what we get. So the one thing that we're going to get, depending on how you're getting those, but basically a lot of these harvest things you're going to get with the pull. So this one especially, to pull up on a line or to pull up. I would expect it's going to be a yiq verb. Yish is, so when we see pulling, we see siyiq, kende atsayiq, and that's usually to pull up a rope or to pull something upwards. Like this is where the verb for put your pants on, and put your socks on, and your shoes on. And so that's where you're getting that. Yish is to pull a fairly light object, and then chut is more of dragging something, and so in chat is to also kind of pull something along like a sled. But we also see whoosh kaudutzachet. They were having a tug of war. They were pulling it together. Anahu kaduyish. They pull. People pull up rutabaga. So that yish is to pull something up, especially like something that's not very heavy. Whereas the yiq is it's just a different type of pulling. So it's probably kind of a smaller type of a pull as opposed to a bigger type of a one. And then this one, the verb root is to tear something. So for picking those herring eggs, I would say Let me go find this verb to pull something in. So I would use this verb to pull, and then especially on a line. So you see jigging, taking off shoes, putting on shoes. So I'd probably go with this one. Like kaysayiq would be the command form, pull it up like those branches or those trees. Kaykhwasayiq, I pulled it up. And then there's a lot of, whenever we're working on traditional foods too, there's such a useful verb, which is to just work on it. And so the one to work on things, if we go to the ne verb roots, we're looking for work on it. And it's like this one. So you could say, ye dakhane, qa ye dakhane. I'm working on qa. Or you could say, future, qa ye dakhone. I'm going to work on the... And so it just kind of depends if you're talking about... Because the working sort of verbs, there's ye dakhone, and then the other one that gets used a lot is this one, which would be the future verb would be ye khwasane, to fix something, or ye khwasane, I fixed it. So those ones are used for an awful lot of things. Like that could be, I could say, ye khwasane we nadak. I'm gonna get the table ready. I'm gonna clean. I'm gonna wipe it off. I'm gonna put dishes on it. Or I could say, atqishi ye khwasane. I'm gonna make dry fish. You could say, and so this one, it's just a doing verb. And then there's two kind of ones. This one generally refers to sort of fixing something or getting something ready. And you could put yun in front of it as well. This is where the yun geyewene, it's related to this verb. So you could say yun khosane could be yun khosane as opposed to ye would be I got it ready, right? Whatever it was. Like maybe I had to come in this room and set up all these silly electronics like I have to do. And I could say ye khosane, I got these things ready. And then da'ane is a little bit different, and it usually, like you're working on something, it's usually some really specific type of work, and so this is something you'll see a similar type of, so you've got ye, so you could say ye atwune, it happened, right? Or you could say yan geyune, are you ready? Those are the exact same verb root, and same with this one. Dasaye da'ine, what are you working on? And that could be beating or cutting fish, or so the this one usually has there's some really specific kind of purpose we're referring to, and then another similar one is just to work, just in general, like I'm going to work on it. And this usually just refers to your job, or it could be schoolwork or housework. I'm going to go work on my homework. I'm going to do the housework, the chores. So they're pretty similar. There's times where you can use them kind of interchangeably. But I would...
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So the I work or I am working, sometimes it sounds like it's got an E at the end of it, like ye jechenei. Why am I hearing that? Or maybe. So
usually it would be like if you'd say shkun ye jene dot ye jikwane. So ye jene is also a noun for work. So you could say ach ye jene, my work, ye jene, your work. Du yejene yidat. Du tutwuhi. He's worried about his work.
But how would you spell that, Janine?
Oh, yeah. So, let's put it on here.
When I say I work in the library in introductions, I'm never sure that I'm saying it right.
So this is the one, and so this is a noun, and it's work. But then when that noun gets possessed, so you'd say like, ach, oops, let me change the. So then you'd say, ach, ye, jene, ye.
Okay.
So this follows one of those kind of tricky rules with possession is when something ends with a single high vowel, it tends to go long and low. Like te becomes te ye. So ach ye jene ye. And so this could be ach ye jene awa ka I diltu Tlingit. So that my work is teaching people Tlingit. And then it could be ach ye jene awa shkun, right? Skun is my school is my work. So shkun ye jene, so that it shows this relationship too. Shkun ye jene would be homework. Nate ye jene could be housework, and so that ye jene just is a noun. Any other questions?
I have I'm going to apologize, I was late, I got stuck at work.
Awesome.
So if you already went over this, but for our midterm we were supposed to do the translation project, which I don't.
Oh, that's right.
And then we're supposed to have a final, and now I'm starting to get anxious because you said you were going to give us something to translate, and I don't. Anyway, I just don't want it all to land on us at the end, and I'm trying to pace myself. So
that's a really good point. Okay, so let's do this. Let's just. I guess I feel like we're doing fine, and so what I'd like to do is for us to just keep trying to speak on Thursdays and try and bring things for Thursdays, and those will count as all of our language kind of performance type of things. And then Thursday I will give you all a document that has the Tlingit but no English, and you'll translate that, and that'll be due by the end of finals week, which is the end of that first week in May. And then for our finals, I would like us all to do just some kind of language performance. I don't really, you could do it by yourself, you could do it in groups, you could do, but it should be something that is more than what you've done before.
Can it be recorded?
It could be recorded. Yeah, you can make a movie. You could do. I'm open to whatever, and so I like. We could do. It could be a puppet show. It could be. I'm down for whatever. There was one semester where we just did like puppet shows, but I don't think we got the numbers anymore. And it was all. We had one group. And it worked really well because we had a group in Carcross, and so they did their own little puppet show. We had a group in Whitehorse, and they did their own puppet show. And then we did one here, and we set up a little stage and a camera. And it was very professional. It was very good. But yeah, let's talk. We'll keep talking ideas. It's really just you conveying something. So I know last semester we did like a letter and stuff. I don't want to do anything too intense like that, just because we're doing. I feel like the intensity is already there with just focusing on conjugating all of these verbs. And so I feel like everybody's progressing. We're all getting somewhere with the language, which is our ultimate goal. And so I would like you and you could use slides, you can use all kinds of visuals, anything that kind of helps you. I would really be interested if you could convey some kind of information or story or something. So something a little bit bigger than just kind of chunking together some language in an awesome way, but also in a kind of a random way sometimes. so that there is, and it should be trying to get into the minutes. I don't want to put like an actual time limit on there because you might just be trying to hit that goal instead of thinking of something that would be really fun. Some of the types of things that have stood out over the years, try not to play favorites here, but a student took a video that was like a promotional thing for the Alaska Marine Highway and took the audio off of it and narrated it in Tlingit. And that was really fun. Except at one point there were some bears eating fish, and instead of saying chat has awacha, he said chat has awacha, which is, you would say chat awacha, but it sounded like they were eating me instead of the fish. Let's see. I had some students who did a short film that was pretty fun. And so, yeah, if you think of a project where you think that would be kind of fun to do and it wouldn't stress you out a whole bunch, that would be good. But I'm trying to push. When I say more than before, I'm not saying like necessarily longer, but they had this phrase in Hawaii, like, let's go get the deep water fish. So it's a little bit less sort of, I found this phrase and I could put this one here, and this phrase, I put this one here. But trying to make things a little bit more, if that makes sense. And we'll have fun. We'll try to have fun. Any other thoughts or questions on our class process and schedule? When is it due? That's it. Yeah, so I think we'll just keep doing what we're doing. I kind of just syllabus. I kind of threw the syllabus out the window. So what I think we should do is we'll keep doing these kind of drilling things. Then I want to move into kind of having language in these chunks. So we'll have like some how to talk about going places, and then we'll have another one where we'll talk about just some finer points of like things that people commonly, I think, need to know how to say. As far as when everything is due. So the first week of May is finals week, and we meet on that Tuesday. Let me pull up a schedule so I'm not just groping for potential days. So what I would like us to do so here's our kind of class schedule. We're just whoosh tin ye jitunayin all day long. We're right here in week 11, so we were supposed to do these midterm translations like totally last week, but I'm not worried about it. And so I think this semester I'm not even about midterms. I'm just all about like big projects, which I think is fine. I think you guys are doing great with your language performances. So what I would like us to do is focus on these Thursdays so that you can challenge yourself to just talk more, but not in any sort of, nothing's being graded, nothing's being judged. It's just, let's just try and figure out a way to just encourage that language production to happen. And so I'll try and think of some activities we can do so that, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these left, and then poof, right? So we get these 5 weeks to sort of do some things before we push ourselves into summer mode. And so it's really going to be like looking at verbs and stuff on Tuesdays, and then trying to talk on Thursdays. And maybe pulling out and doing a little bit more sort of lessons. But here we are, May 1st. That's when you'd make your final presentation. It could be a speech, it could be a video, it could be whatever. Like if you're creative, you want to explore creativity, go for it. I've had students make like little, they made some workbooks. I guess that's kind of a beginning Tlingit thing. Made a workbook for kids. It was really fun. They did a crossword and some other things. But I think I'm looking more for like you putting the language together. So like describing things, narrating stories, dialogue sort of exercises. Those are the things that I'm kind of thinking about. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm being really like. But with the immersion time, something that, you know, you were talking about themes or something to kind of chunk it down.
Mm-hmm.
And if we knew what they were in advance so that we could practice, like some sentences or...
Sure.
Because I mean, I was thinking about Go Fish, how they had all these things that you might say, like, you're a liar, or it's your, you know, that you could kind of see that, practice it ahead of time. What if we did one that was based around eating and drinking? Maybe we shared some treats in class and
Sure.
had sentences like, do you want water? I'm thirsty. Or I don't know how that would work, but I think practicing talking, if we had some confidence building by...
Okay. So let's do Thursday, and I can go over some phrases in an immersion environment. We just don't use English, and you can read the English. But I can go over some phrases this Thursday on, like, I mean, we're talking about, like, hungry, thirsty, cooking, eating, sharing, tasting, right, and cleaning. There's a whole sort of, and so this is all just sort of living with the language type of stuff. So let's focus on that on Thursday. So the theme is sort of foods, and the other thing that's coming up too is sort of, they did this, the elders one time sat us down when they did these sort of an assessment on some of us. And I noticed some of them really like talking about foods. So with the food harvesting that's coming up too, let's start thinking about that. Thursday also, for your guys' information, the class here, we're going to wrap up a little early, but then you're all invited to there's a short film on salmon, and that starts at 7 in the Egan lecture hall, and I'm going to do a lesson on salmon. And so I'm going to do like the names of the body parts, and then for fish, what we'll see is there's a bunch of different verbs for fishing, and there's a bunch of different verbs for fish to move around. And so that's kind of fun stuff. So yeah, we'll just, as this last kind of month, we'll think about themes, both things that we can practice on Tuesdays, and then also we can practice them on Thursday too, but I think that will help. So this week we'll do hungry, you know, just everything about food. We're going to be foodies in Tlingit on Thursday, and then we'll come back after the weekend and we'll think of an activity for the following Thursday. But to come back, so just to be clear, we're really looking at May 1st, having some sort of language presentation for us that's, you know, hopefully a few minutes long. It could be something that you do live and share with us, or it could be something that you make a video, and that's totally fine. And then so this is a Tuesday, so Thursday would be May 3rd, and then Friday would be May 4th, and that's when your translation exercise will be due. So for your translation exercise, I'm going to give you, it won't be terribly long, but it might be 4 or 5 pages with just the Tlingit, and you have to translate it. So I'll hand those out on Thursday, so you can get to work on those, and you'll have a month to finish it. And then we won't really have time to go over them, but I'll take a look at them, and then I'll send you the translation. And translation is such an interesting thing, right? It's such an interesting thing, because you could have something like, you could say, like, let's say 2 people are talking, and person 1 could say, "Du inkachonik sikh nauz," right? Or sikh nauz. I told him to do the dishes. Aqa yeausane, right? In the context of a conversation, the way I would translate that is, I told him to do the dishes, and then he did them. But if you do like a literal translation, I told him to do the dishes, and then he did it, right? And so it's one of these things where, like, I don't see translation as really a right and wrong type of thing. But then what I'll send you is just the way that I translate it. And that doesn't mean it's the correct way, not at all. Because there's a lot of different things when we look at translating something. And we'll do a couple exercises. I know Shaqao Ish, who sat in with us one class, was really interested in Shasti, who tells the Battle of Sitka. And we'll look at some of her stuff, and we'll talk about the act of translating kind of these bigger chunks of Tlingit from the masters, and how we sort of go about that work. Okay.
How complicated will the passages be? Because with some of the verbs, because of all those preverbs and postverbs, it's I don't even know where to begin. Like, honestly, looking up, you can't just go into a dictionary or even go to the verb root conjugation place. I mean, sometimes they're subtle, complex, and
right.
I mean,
what if we? Well, let's see. I think I know which one I want to work on, but then I got to find one that's not. I don't think you guys would just go find the answers, but I got to make sure there's one that doesn't have all the answers just out there. But we could. One alternative, for those of you online, I'll certainly email it to you guys and put it on tlingitlanguage.com. So what we could do is, let's say I gave you something this week and it was like 5 pages long. Then we could do a page a week, and we can come back and I could say, are there any parts that you're stuck on? And we can work on those parts together. We do that. How does the group? Because translating is really hard. It's hard work. I think when we sit down and we sort of say, okay, I've got this story that my grandpa told so and so, and I would like it translated from Tlingit to English. Like, if that's really like Tlingit oratory, like the way that the old people used to do it, there's probably 10 people in the world that could do an accurate job of translating it. So it's not going to be the hardest thing in the world, but it's not going to be the beaver and the porcupine story, although that story's so cute and so fun. And then I'll send you guys a link for the video too. There'll be a video to it, so you can listen to it and watch it and sort of dive into your resources a little bit. So if we're feeling a little nervous, I'm totally fine that it's something where you do some on your own and then we collaborate. And we'll just go maybe a page by page, just sort of see where we're at. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thanks for being flexible. Let's see. His words are too much to believe. Okay. They competed with each other in dancing as a dance-off. These are also fun. I mean, so as summer comes up and you guys are thinking, you got to challenge yourself to stay in the Tlingit mode. And I think that mode is listening, speaking, doing your research, right? I mean, Lear's got so much stuff in these notes. And one of the things that, I suppose I can create a PDF version of it. So Yesh Uchtla, who came to visit us last week from Whitehorse, a couple years ago, there's some really fun projects that folks have done, and you could certainly do one of these projects. If you look at this, this is a 3-part table where she retyped this whole thing, these 866 pages of notes on verbs. And it's amazing. It's really neat to have. And I'll put this up there because then you could do an internet search, you could do a document search here for let's see, like, what if there's something about herring in here? Is there anything about herring in his verb notes? And so is soaking them, herring eggs. And so you see a tea. And then, is there anything else? Oh, to put them down, awachak. And then a herring rake, hitla. Fishing for herring, a heat. It's actually raking, with a herring rake. Has scum all over it after the herring spawn. And that's like an algae sort of tidal kind of scum on there. Is fishing, especially for herring. A shalchut. Herring roe, cooking fast. Ikut. Herring that's rich, and yulashan, sock, that's even salmon that's rich. Se'echi. So there's something that's to be, it has a lot of grease on it, has a lot of oil. Yase'echi. Chat yase'echi. That's probably me. I got a greasy face. Traded herring eggs. Traded dried herring eggs for the right to use the song. And so it's just fun stuff to sort of look at, and you could sort of try and figure out how some of those things work. You could retype some of this. I mean, there's lots of old notes. There's also stories that we have. There's another initiative that we've sort of, a separate student wanted to come up with a project, and so we just sort of talked. And these are things just to sort of keep yourself in the language, because sometimes retyping something is kind of a fun exercise. It's a lot of work, but it's also, you don't have to think so hard. I mean, you could think, but you can also just look at it and type it and look at it and sort of, that act, I think, does a lot for just sort of putting the stuff that's in there into your brain a little bit more. So when we had all these stories, and so there's a couple of things. So one is all the wonderful stories that are in Hashuka, and all the wonderful speeches that are in Hatu Anaguyis. We're encouraging students to pick ones that haven't been retyped and just retype them. So we have electronic versions of them. And it's just nice because you can get in and you copy some of these things. And so as you sort of examine, this is Kotz by Tsi Hua, J.B. Fawcett. And so you can look at and there's a lot of different things you can do when you're examining these. Like, how did they even start a story? This is an amazing story. It's a magnificent story. Cut at everything, right? Ayah, ya yanechich. So ya yanechich means like some public event is occurring, right? So all these things happened. From long time ago. You atun, that hunting, at gutut wu adin. People used to do that, right? So they're the ones who used to go into the forest, right? And so this is from wu at, and then you get the in on the end, which makes it used to do that thing. Tlingit. So this is what you see. When you see the way the Downhowers translate, they adjust the word order so that it sounds more familiar to an English speaker. Because in Tlingit, if you were to say, long time ago, that hunting, the ones who went in the forest, Tlingit, and the water going across the surface of it, they used to, right? And so these are some word order things that are kind of fun. Unpacking some of this stuff, like we were just talking about anahuk. So, hin hukanach. So some of the things that you can do is, and I work on an Apple, so most of these are in a program called Pages. But I can put them up as PDFs. I can put them up as Word documents. You could have them. You could do whatever you want with them. I think they're really fantastic, and I'm hoping that, I'm sure a lot of these organizations are okay that we just sort of use them, right? Because this is how we get into that stuff. Dasayu an has'atin. What did they do that with? Yu'ayatuqa is what people might ask, right? Fun stuff. Okay. Thoughts?
I find these kinds of translations frustrating as a language learner because it might make it flow more in English, but when you're trying to compare and the thing that it's comparing with across from it is somewhere else, you know what I mean?
Right. So something that you could do as an exercise is you could take this document and you could make a copy of it, and then you could make a middle column, and you could say, I mean, you could take this. Cool, you could take this as far as you want. You know, so you could even delete this one if you wanted to, and just have your own translation, or you could have 4 columns. I mean, the nice thing about technology is if you're familiar with it, you've got lots and lots of options. We can also change this document so that it's going long ways, and we can just make all of this stuff. Let me back out a little bit. So we can make all of these a little bit bigger. So we can go to column and make these bigger. And so now I got this big long sort of document like this. And as I went through, what I could do here, so like shekudzi is, you don't have to pull that apart. And we might write it like this these days. You know, we see the writing conventions just change a little bit. And then we've got shkatnik, and then aya. And it's up, you know, so the shkatnik I wouldn't pull apart, but that one, or maybe you just want to sort of find the verbs and goof around with those. And you could say, amazing story this is. And so you could do a project like this, where you're just sort of, and this is good brain exercise. The answers are there for you, and we could sort of do some of this stuff together if you guys want to. This story it's an amazing story, and what you do is you get in there and you learn this story more. You learn how the language is working, and you get into the mind of that storyteller, and then this is how you get to know these speakers, all these wonderful things that they left behind. And for a lot of people, they'll only deal with the English. And so this is our work. This is hayi jineyi. It's right in between here, this sort of middle ground, because that's where I think a lot of the dots start connecting. Because like, oh yeah, I remember. And this is what I see with people who are able to speak Tlingit on a regular basis, is they'll be like, oh yeah, well I was looking at Kotz and I was, you know, seeing how he used this, and then I was thinking, how could I use, you know, because once you learn some of that stuff, like there's a really good one right here. Everybody say achu ah. Achu ah. Achu ah. Achu ah. Achu ah. So what that means is some of them. Right? And that's such a great thing to be able to use, right? Because you could say, there's some people over there and they eat fish, but some of them want steak, right? Or whatever, right? You know, and it's just to say, not all of them, but some of them, right? And so this is, in the context, is what some people would ask, right? So, ku'u. Ku'u is another really good word to know how to use. Let me zoom in, it's probably too small for you guys online. Ku'u is a group of people that live in a place, right? So this is how you'd say, you know, those people over in Angun, Ku'u, the people of Angun, right? And it could be yidatqu, the new generation, right? The people of long ago. And so this is from a verb, quya'u, to reside somewhere, right? And then you see how some of these things are used. This is technically phrased like a question, but it's not a question. This is how you do one of these for a long time, right? Like in English, you might say, let's say we're telling a story. So his boat wrecked and it sank, and that's why he was on this island. How many days was he there? And you're just saying for many days. Shuwachich means it reached its end. We talked about this in our time thing the other day. How many years have passed? It's not really a question. It's really just sort of a way to say, for many years. And you could do that, kundisa shuwachich. How many months passed? Right? And this is how you do one of these for days and days, for many years types of things in Tlingit.
So, does that phrase mean for many years, or how many years passed?
I would say in this context, for many years. And so these are the translation questions where translation, the danger or the scary part is it's up to you. And the fun part is it's up to you. Right? Because in this context, I would say it was a long time ago. It was, many years have passed since then. But in this case, surely there used to be weapons to hunt with. I would probably, if I were writing this, and I'm never saying like people are wrong, right? We got to really reject that right and wrong type of thing, because a lot of people try to do that. As I just say, because when he says people are always asking, what did they hunt with long time ago? So many years have passed. That's probably how I translate that in the context of that. And so now he's just sort of moving into what he kind of thinks about it. Maybe I should get rid of this category so we can see the English. Maybe we can. So we might adjust this to the way, so we say this is, and so however we want to do this, because this is the other thing, we can sort of kind of find the verbs. We could do some kind of exercise where we go through and we say, well, I want to just find all the verbs I can and just see how they're working. So I'll change them orange, or you assume that's not really a verb. This is a verb right here. And so just practicing kind of spotting a verb and just sort of when is a verb, when is it not a verb? Because I thought assume was a verb. Just like yejene, atun is also a noun, right? So you could just say atun. Yisekuke atun dot. Do you know about hunting? And there's another sort of thing that you're going to encounter as you reach this stage, as you're going to start interacting with people, and you're going to put something together, and you're going to ask them how to say it, and it'll come out a little different than you said. But it doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just there could be multiple ways to say something. Like if someone's learning English and they said, how do you say, I found my socks? And someone might say, I found my socks. Or someone might say, I came upon my socks. Right? Or, there's other things too, right? So I'm kind of rambling now. This is something that's pretty fun. I think we might have talked about this once. So ashat is the verb here, and it's to grab something, is to catch it. So this yeah that pops up at the end here, this is a really fun thing. You're going to see it in place names, and you're going to see it in stories too. So, for example, this is the verb K has ashatch. People are catching, they are catching them, right? Basically. And so if you say K, let's just get rid of the S because it's going to confuse. K ashatch, the place where he or she caught it. That would be this one right here, which is whatever, like any verb plus the yeah part, right? So let's say atwugut. Like let's say we're talking about a raven story. We say this is the place where Raven walked around. Atwugut. So that what happens is it gets the relational suffix and the yeah, and that means it's the place where that verb happened. And you'll see a lot of place names that are like that. But if you put ade before it, adewugudiye, now we're talking about the way the verb happened, right? So we're saying, for example, here's this raven story. Like let's say it was that raven. There's a raven and whiskey story. It's really fun. And you said atwagudiye. That's the place where Raven walked around. But if you said, and he drank 6 barrels of whiskey, which I think he did in the story, and then you say kasiye ade atwagudiye. It was strange the way he was walking around. He was walking around strangely. So that ade verbiya, we're talking about the way that verb happened. Verbiya, the place that verb happened. Okay. All right. Let's conjugate some verbs, maybe. Or you guys got more questions?
I was wondering if we could have a break.
Okay. Let's take a break.
Sorry.
Is there an online collection of short words and their own combinations? Yeah, let's look at some of those. I'll show you where some of those, there's a few of them that I have. Okay, break time. 7 minutes.
And let them debate those issues so that we have those conversation tools, and we will be stronger, I think, if we have the ability to make the point across and learn from them about why some of the things are so important.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. I was just talking with a few folks, I think last week or maybe the week before, about this, that how to have disagreements, because if you don't know how to have and it doesn't mean you're necessarily arguing, although I love to be known as the guy who went to cake and got the elders to argue with each other. Just some part of me wants to do that, but just to say, I disagree, or they think differently, or even just they say that differently, and just getting that from the old people, I think, is really important to see how would you sort of do that, because I think they would teach us how to do it in a very respectful manner. But also if you want to, because we don't want to have to switch to English to do something, if there's things we don't know how to do in Tlingit, we want to figure out how to do those things and to practice it. And then the best is to have somebody model it for us. And so I've thought of this for a long time, is just sort of trying to get a disagreement, and maybe it's a big one, and maybe it's another one that's a sort of a smaller one, but just in the right scenario, so they're not going to genuinely get upset at each other, but also that we know how to use that language, so that if we have, and maybe we could do some silly things, so that we could have, like, I remember one time we did these dialogue exercises where we tried to just see who could be the most over-the-top dramatic with it. And so maybe we could be kind of over-the-top dramatic with some of this stuff, and we argue about something just kind of silly, but then also show how to do some of those things. So I'll pull some things together for next Tuesday so we can do some of that stuff. Just agreeing, disagreeing, talking, I mean, basically just how to have a more, because what we're trying to do is get off the page. It's like all these memorized conversations that we know how to do. And then I think it's fine to just sprinkle English in there if you don't know how. So you could say, Khan akawanik, Khan akawanik, way de atach aya, haswutlagas chuchak, Khatkaa, chakodyete tukhwatan adat. Like, I think differently about it, right? And so these are some things that I think we need to learn how to do. Those are really great ideas. And so there is a chapter in Hausaneach, going back to what Shauna Kate was saying, that has a bunch of particles in there. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on them, but if you run into kind of little particles, and a lot of these used to not be Lear had them in a lot of different sources. Carrie had a bunch of them put into her dictionary. And then just trying to get a better sort of holding on to how we're using these. And also just, I want to stress that if you see it in a written source like a book, that's really just a snapshot of what that word means. Once you start putting things into other contexts, it could kind of change. And so I notice sometimes people get into, speaking of disagreements, they'll say, oh yeah, you said this means that, but I think it means this. And so, and I think it's fine. There needs to be those dynamics around a language, right? It's called kind of normalization, which is, or standardization, which is like, oh, what does this mean? And it might mean different things in different communities. And how is this thing being used? And how come we're not using this thing anymore? And so those are some things we want to do as well. And so there's a bunch of these things that are in here. And some of them relate. They function a little bit differently when there's a verb around. But that's a good chapter to sort of look through sometimes. And there's these little just kind of interjections, which are always fun to learn how to use, because you can use them all the time. And people are usually going to know what generally what you mean. And there's a bunch of them too that, depending on the context, you be putting someone in their place a little bit or laughing. And so these are pretty fun to use. And we've had quite a few different classes where fluent speakers came and we asked them about these. And whenever you're trying to, translation and any kind of dictionary work, it's just an approximate value. So the one thing, I've been in language sessions before where, we asked an elder how to say something and they told us, and someone said, that's not what the dictionary says. And so also just trying not to use these as sort of right and wrong type of sources, but just sort of, we try to keep I try to think of them as living documents to help people learn and use the language. And if we need to change it, we'll just change it. We don't have to make it a really big deal. And so I know sometimes people can get a little upset that when they see things written, especially when you start breaking, because Tlingit is a very fluid language, all these things relate to each other, but we need to tease them apart sometimes too, to say, okay, when you're using this is how you think of it, and that might kind of help you. And then there's a few conversational phrases in here. Some of them I think I need to fix a little bit. And you can get these in a lot of the other sort of phrase books that are out there. And then we'll probably look through that other one again, maybe on Thursday too, that one about language in the home, as we'll keep going through. And yeah. Okay. Good enough. Cheesh. So let's maybe move back to our perfective verb work and just thinking about how the perfective works. There's kind of some things that we're focusing on here. One is the classifier appears in these groups. And let me try and make this, I'll just leave it like this. Sorry. So the classifier does appear It is in these groups, and so when you're using a perfective verb, you do expect ya, and then all of the others have the I in them. So you have de, se, zi, hle, gle, she, che. So we should be really listening that I sound. The exception is this zero, which is the only plus I that doesn't have the letter I in it. It's sort of a really interesting one. And when we think of the classifiers, again, just always coming back to it, it helps to sort of classify something. So we're not talking about, it's a big table, yagay, but it's a big sea lion, shigay, because it's alive, right? The other thing that it does is sometimes it says it's not just this way, achtuwu yakay, but it's somebody made that happen. Achtuwu yishakay, you made me feel better, right? So sometimes it's saying the verb didn't just happen, somebody made that verb happen. And so we saw a couple examples of that, which I'm sure we'll see again. The stem variation is just saying the stem itself, like let's say goot, to walk. Sometimes you'll say nech uwagut. We were doing some language activities with kids on Thursday, and we had a model clan house and a bunch of these little bears, and we'd go nech uwagut, and I kept putting them in the house and say nech uwagut, nech uwagut, nech uwagut, nech uwagut. And then when they were inside, and they went outside, gande woo goot, gande woo goot, gande woo goot. So the first one is gut, it's short and high. The other one, goot, long and low. There's a reason for that, but one thing that you should know is when you get to a perfective verb, and once we start looking at these modes and we start talking about how does stem variation work, it's a combination of the conjugation class. Every verb is either zero, na, ga, or qa. Zero means it comes to an end. Na means it's an ongoing thing. Ga is upwards. Qa is downwards. So there's three things that combine and interact. The verb mode, so we're talking about the perfective, that's the mode. The conjugation type, there it is right there. It'll be in the theme itself. And then the stem type. You have open and fading is marked with this little H. Then you have closed, and you have closed and high, which we call glottal and ejective. Basically, if you look at the verb theme and you see a high tone, it'll never go low. That's what that tells you, right? So you have these four stem types. Then you also have the pattern. So any perfective verb, if you see a verb in the perfective, you see that W in there? If it's open and high, right? So you could say hua ha, then you know it's a zero conjugation type. If it's open and low, hua ta, then you know that it's a na, ga, or a qa. You can't tell which one it is. But from the perfective, you can tell whether it's zero or not. Right? And this is a theme. You got zero and everything else. And you'll see that theme in a few different things. For the closed verbs, the zeros will be short and high. Otherwise, they'll be long and low, except for the glottal and ejective, because there's no low version. Again, it's a lot to absorb, but once we start looking through examples again, it starts to kind of get put together in your brain. So, let's find them, and we're going to sew. So as we look at these, we sort of practice reading the verb theme so we could start using that verb. And ideally, we hit a point where we can look at that verb, use it a few times, and then we've just got it internalized, right? So finding something, we see the first thing we look at is the transitivity. There's an object that tells us the third person will be awa, right? There'll be the a right in front of it for the object. There's a subject. There's a zero group classifier, so this is going to be ya, all the way down. And then A is the verb root. That little X means it's long and low every time. We don't have to worry about stem variation at all. So then, all of these 0 classifier perfectives, if we just, A is the verb root. Without that root on there, we have hua, watua, yi, ye, awa, hus awa, wadua. Every single time. So we could take any, so we could say, what a, I found it. Hua ha, I ate it. Hua ta, I slept. Watuat a, we found it. Watuaha, we ate it. Watuaheu, because plural people sleeping is different than the singular. We still get watua. You found it. Ye a, you ate it. Ye ha, you slept. Ye ta. Y'all, ye a, ye ha, ye heu. He or she. Awat a, awaha, oops, wuta, because there's no object. Has awat a, would do what a. When you get the di on there, and this is the 0 and everything else logic, right? So we see here, there's a subject, there's no object, so we're going to get w as opposed to awa. It's d plus 0, so that means it's going to be di all the way down, except for the fourth person. And then ka, which is a 0 verb, that means it's going to be long and high every single time. So if we go through, I'll say it and you guys just repeat it so you guys can. Okay.
When we're looking at these patterns, and you have ones that like don't have stem variations and are transitive and all of this, it would be great if we had like a list of verbs that you could do that way on the left, and a list of verbs that you could all do like the way on the right. You know what I mean? So that we could know, at least for those verbs, this is how, until we get it, that we can do it on our own.
Yeah, because our focus here is on the prefix, right? And so really focusing on because one of the things with the prefix here, so we see this chwade, watude, yide, yide, would, has, would, wadua. With the exception of the fourth person, like see this, the di, this could be tle, si, shi, gli, zi, or ji. And all that's going to change is this one letter right here. So for example, if we just not even worry about we'll just pull the stem right off, right? So the ka is going to go away. That guy's going away, right? So we'll say chwade, watude, yide, yide, would, has, would, wadua. If that were an S classifier, chwase, watuse, yise, yise, wuse, haswuse, and wududze. If it was an S plus D, chwadze, watudze, yidze, yidze, wudze, haswudze, and wududze. And same with the th, ze, so it's just changing that one letter. So what we're trying to do here is just, we are starting to look at stem variation, but the biggest thing we're focused on is that prefix. Okay, so I was sewing. Everybody say chwadeka, watudeka, yideka, yideka, wudeka, haswudeka, waduaka. And then here's a different verb. So Object, we're going to get ause. S group, we're going to get se all the way down, except for the fourth person will get z, because you can't do se. Teen, qa, long and low. This one, we're going to get, there's a subject only, so we'll get wudzigit as opposed to audzigit. And then D plus S, so it's going to be z all the way down. Geet, 0, short and high. Git. Okay? So, I saw it. Khosatin. Watusatin. Yisatin. Yisatin. Ausatin. Hasausatin. Wududzatin. Agate khwadzagit. Agate watudzagit. Agate yidzagit. Agate yidzagit. Agate wudzagit. Agate haswudzagit. Agate wududzagit. Okay, any questions, thoughts? And there's I'll share a chat. There was another another text I was working on. I'll share that chapter, and it has all of these examples, and also has a bunch of text you could read about. But it's the stuff I was saying, but sometimes if you read it, it's a little different. So here's O with an object. Ausle is what we should be looking for. L group, so tle, all the way down. Fourth person will be tle. Oots, na, long and low. For the other one, there's no object, so w is what we're going to get there. D plus L, so tle. Ku, it's a na, so it'll be low all the way down. Okay. Breaking rope-like objects, and then we also have barfing. Khwashik oots. Wutushik oots. Yishik oots. Yishik oots. Aushik oots. Hasaushik oots. Wududlik oots. Khwatliku. Wutudliku. Yidliku. Yidliku. Woodliku. Huswoodliku. Wududliku. Okay, object, so we're going to get ow. SH, we're going to get sh. And then the fourth person will be j. On is a ga, long and low. Object on the next one, so we're going to get ow. D plus SH, we're going to get j all the way down. Kuch is a 0, so it's going to be high, short and high all the way down. So I hated it. Khwashik on. Watushik on. Yishik on. Yishik on. Aushik on. Has aushik on. Wudujik on. Khwajakuch. Wutujakuch. Yijakuch. Yijakuch. Aujakuch. Has aujakuch. Wudujakuch. I want to make, this idea comes from Al-Tatsin, Mike Hoyt. We want to do, Sunday we're going to do like a puppet show for kids. And we're going to make probably a man and a woman who can be, we're going to call them kushakani, effective, affectionately, which is, kushakani would be like they hate people. And it's like the Muppets, those two old guys that would always criticize everything. And then there'll be a lot of there'll be a lot of jokes that we could probably put in there, but just for fun, not making fun of anybody in particular.
So the first one is, I hate it.
I hated it, yeah.
I hated it. Oh, right.
Yeah,
Right.
which, it doesn't mean you don't hate it anymore, but you're certainly talking about something that had already happened.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
And then, so for the puking one, or wait, to contribute food to a potluck or gathering.
It's a very rare verb.
Okay.
And so the other thing is when we come back to the sort of discussion on the classifier, there's a whole bunch of, if we just sort of had piles of verbs, the zero classifier verbs would be the biggest pile. Then probably the S and the L are probably about the same size. There's hardly any SH verbs. It's kind of rare. Okay. So, putting this stuff together, all this knowledge that we just sort of learned, what I would like, so for example, when I walked you through reading the theme, there's an object, so we should expect the A on the third person. The classifier is SH, so it should be sh. It's on, which is a g conjugation, so it should be long and low. What I would like you guys to do is take turns explaining what you see in the theme so we can boldly and accurately predict what the verb is going to look like. And then I would like us to take turns trying to put these together. And it's kind of excruciating, but this, if we just keep doing this, I've seen it before, it starts to click. Because it's one of these things, all this information is coming at you, it's information overload right away, but then all of a sudden there's this blank thing and you got to figure out how to say it. And once we do this a few times, it actually, and for some it clicks faster than others, it's no big deal. But once you get one, you tend to sort of get them one right after. And the right hand will be kind of easier because, and let me explain the logic of these first. So this is showing you where, so if we go back to this, we got zero group, D, S, D plus S, L, D plus L, SH, D plus SH. Right? That's the order that we have these presented. You go through these tables. 0, 0 plus D. S, S plus D. L, L plus D. SH, SH plus D. So what these examples are showing you is all the possible ways that can really look. Right? This shows you every possible basic subject combination for the perfective. So now we're going to go through and do 2 zero classifier verbs. So once we got the left side, the right side it'll be identical. The prefix will, unless there's no object. That might be the one thing that changes it. There's also this kind of weird extra thing, and if we hit that extra thing, I'll certainly just tell you about it. So who wants to go first and tell me what the verb theme tells us about the perfective of these particular verbs? Oh, I see Tana. So Tana says it's 0. So you're going to have the y, ch, ya. You are correct. There's one additional piece of information. So as we sort of walk, and when you talk to me about this theme, what I'm hoping you'll present is this information in this order. There's an object, so the third person should have the A in front of it. There's a zero group classifier, so it should be ya all the way down. Ach is a closed stem. Zero classification, zero conjugation class, so it should be short and high. So you had hua-ach, but we should expect hua-ach. So everybody say khwa'ach. Khwa'ach. But now once we get that first one, we should be able to get them all the way down, right? So now that we have khwa'ach, can somebody, maybe online, tell us we heard it? H-E-A-R-D.
Watua'ach.
Oh, one more time.
Watua'ach.
Get away. Gonna cheesh. Watua'ach. Yeah, naika. Watua'ach. 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 So khwa and watua. Okay, this is, and it's gonna be every time, every single time. 0 classifier, khwa. 0 classifier, watua. So, who wants to tell me? Oh, this is the exception. Okay. Only for the 0 group classifier, there are a couple times when the second person, instead of being ye, like we saw in the earlier example, it's going to be iya. And then there's a third person one, instead of woo, sometimes you're going to get uwa. And you just got to remember which ones they are, because it really has to do with like achieving a goal, right? So I'll do this one because it's kind of tricky. Iya'ach. 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 Okay, someone else can do y'all heard it. Ye'aweh. Ye'ach. Ye'anaiqa. Ye'ach. Ye'ach. He or she heard it. And let's just try and keep the flow going. If you haven't gone yet, try and go, and we'll just try. I'm not trying to call on. We don't have an order established. If we wait too long, somebody just say it. Awa'ach. 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 She or he heard it. They heard. Now the third to the third plural should be the easiest one. Or there shouldn't be some long gap because you just throw has in front of it. So somebody do that. Gook. Goodness, cheesh. Has awa'ach. Has awa'ach. So when we get to the fourth person, here's another one that's like, you see like a long, like one arm with just a tattoo of rules and one arm with a tattoo of common exceptions. So on your left arm, your tattoo, all non-zero classifiers that are fourth person must be plus D. Dudle, dudze, dudje. Every time. You cannot go dusse, you cannot go dushe, you cannot go dushe, because it sounds like a cat. All 0 classifiers in the fourth person must always be minus I. You cannot do de. You just have to doa. Okay? So, who could tell me it was heard? Wadua'ach. 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 So look at those prefixes. Hwa, watua, iya, yi, awa, hus, awa, wadua. And this one is going to be the same on this side too. Iya and iya. Okay. So this side should go faster. So we've got een, which is to pick berries into a container. That verb root is the same for to carry something with contents, which would be sa'in. So you say, achchit sa'in hin. It's a command form for give me that thing with contents in it, right? And Tana says, would that go short and high? Yes. So we should have awa because there's an object there, and it's 0 and closed, so we expect it to go in. It's going to go in. It's not going to go out. Okay, somebody tell me. I picked berries. Yeah, away. Yeah, naika. Khwa in. Khwa in. We picked berries.
Watua in.
Watua in. Yeah, naika. Watua in. You picked berries.
Iya in.
Iya in. Iya in. Y'all picked berries. Anybody not go yet? Or haven't gone in a while?
Ye in.
Gonna cheesh. Ye in. Whoops, wrong way. Ye in.
Ye in.
Ye in.
Ye in.
He or she picked berries. Somebody online want to get that one?
Awa in.
Yeah, awa in. Yanaka. Awa in.
Awa in.
They picked berries.
Plus awa in.
Has awa in. Berries were picked. Wadua in. Okay, goodness cheesh. So one other thing with the fourth person when it comes to translating, if there's an object, you would usually say it was blank. If there's no object, you'd usually say people blank. That's just sort of a general guideline. It's nothing like it's not like etched in stone. Oops, there's our work. Okay, somebody tell me about this verb theme, the top one here. It's the first thing that I was looking for.
Subject?
It's a subject, so there's no object. The third person should be w. There won't be an a in front of it. What's the next thing we're looking for? We should look at the classifier. What is that? What's it going to be? This one, the d plus 0. The plus I version of that is going to be d, all the way down. The last thing is the stem variation. What's that going to look like?
Does it stay the same?
This is a 0.
Oh.
So it's going to be short and high. Zeros are short and high. Everything else is long and low. So we should expect it to end with dishuch every single time, because now the classifier has a consonant. Dishuch, 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 dishuch. And we're changing what comes right before it. So, and one thing about for this one, even though it says to take a bath, there are some speakers who have told us that really means to soak in the icy waters. It's not really like, those are two kind of different things, right? Like soaking in water for strength and taking a bath. So there are some speakers who have told us they would rather we say, but it's tough because a lot of the old people have already named a bathtub like Awudishuchiye, right? The place where people take a bath. And so it's just something where maybe the context helps us out these days. But that's something good to know. So if you can't say this verb, you're going to stink. I took a bath. Khwadishuch. Yayanaika. Khwadishuch. Khwadishuch. We took a bath. How about we bathed in the water? So that doesn't sound like too scandalous.
Before we go to the next one,
yes.
because this is all just like scrambling my brains. When you say that the O, or the 0, I'm sorry, makes it short and high, that's why SHOOCH becomes SH high toned U.
Yes.
CH.
Yes.
Okay.
So for the perfective, the zeros are always high, everything else is always low. Unless there's no low version. For the closed, that low will be short. For the open, that low will be long.
Thank you.
Yes. And so we've got all these cool tables, but then you just gotta keep looking at these examples, and then when you read that theme, now we're learning how to read that theme. And the nice thing is that the theme is there. Like when I was learning Tlingit, we didn't have no verb themes. And so, but there's so much information packed in there that it takes a lot of these exercises to figure out how to read it. But now, the dishuch will be there all the way down on all of these verbs. They all say dishuch. Now it's just how does that perfective marker match up with the subject? And it's going to be chwade, wutude, yide, yide, wude, huswude, and wudule. Or wudua, sorry. So there's all the answers.
So wutua becomes wutuda.
Wutude.
Wutude.
It must be di all the way down, right?
Oh, right. So
Right.
it's just, you get rid of the wa.
Yeah, that 0 has the letter A in there.
Yeah.
Everything else has the letter I. It's just that one,
God.
that 0 is always like, I do what I want. And we had this extended conversation. So Chachi was in here, and we're just sort of having a conversation. We're talking about these classifiers, right? Well, this is kind of a weird thing. So let me actually pull up a picture of the classifier, and we'll step out of these examples for a second. So continuing to think about the classifier. My computer's getting angry. So one kind of theory, oops, let me find a different one. One kind of theory, maybe thinking about these classifiers, right? So when we keep sort of looking at this chart, and we've got a group, and the groups are 0, S, L, and SH. Within that group, it could go plus I or minus I. Plus I means it happened, minus I means it didn't happen. And it could go plus D and minus D. Plus D means it's doing this middle voice thing, or we've kicked the object out. Okay? So I see myself, right? Shwadzatin. Chwasatin. I see it. I have seen it, right? So what we were sort of, if we look at if we think of the minus I minus D as the default, one potential conspiracy theory tinfoil hat explanation is that these are body parts. Sa is this body part right here. It's called the, I guess, the nape of, I don't know what that's called. It's got some kind of fancy name too, like a jugular or something. It's this little base of the neck where the neck meets the body. If you go up, sha is the name of your neck. And then if you go up a little bit more, sha is the name of your head. And so we've got sa, sha, sha. That is a potential, there's some potential link there. And it's just kind of an interesting, fun sort of thing. But then later we were talking and Chashi said, well, where does the zero come from? And I was like, decapitation. But I don't know. If you were to cook up verbs, like if we go back way long time ago when people were making Tlingit, it seems to be like the first verb would be a zero group classifier. Right? Awachut. They're dragging it around. Oh, but they're dragging it by the handle. Oh, let's make an S one. Awsachut. I'm sick. Yanik. Oh, okay, that's a zero. It made me sick. Se. Let's make an S group. Right? And then once you make an S group, then you make an L group. Then you make an SH group if you need to. So that's just, plus D and minus D. So plus D can mean usually one of two things. It means the subject is also the object, or we have kicked the object out of there. And there's a couple that sometimes there's a whole different verb with no object. But otherwise, Huatu, I read it, right? So let's say this is our Tlingit immersion school. Tashtakat yuhan, yi tu aga, yishkun kuku. Everybody, did you read your school book? And so huatu, with a zero group classifier, I read it. But if I just said, what did you do last night? Right? Dasaye dagi ne tatga. Huatu. See, so it goes plus D, and I just kick that object out of there. I didn't read it. I read. I was just reading. Right? It doesn't matter what I was doing. It's all about the action. We focus on the action. That's what the plus D minus D thing is. Now I know it's all super clear because we talked about decapitation. But this is where we see it. So the zero is the sort of exception. But in the perfective, we're going ya, di, si, zi, shli, kli, shi, ji. Right? And so that, and so tana, a minus D is, we consider that just the default form. Like it's minus D, but it can go plus D. And these are some things that we see.
So on that one we were just doing, we did hua dis shuch.
Mm-hmm.
If for the it didn't happen yet, would it be hua dash shuch?
Yes. So it would go duh if like all the futures are going to go duh because you're saying it didn't happen. Like so in the future it can't have happened yet, right? So you could say K'kwad-da-shuch, I'm going to. Teshkwad-da-shuch, or Teshkwad-da-shuch, right? I didn't bathe. So all of those would all go minus I. So here's the thing with the perfective and the plus I classifier, right? So the perfective is this little thing that pops up, y. It gets kind of activated in this area that we were sort of talking about, right? Like these little switches, right? So here's the perfective marker. Once you activate that perfective marker, and so again, we go object, thematic, conjugation stuff, subject, classifier, root. In that conjugation, you have some options, right?
So I'm having an epiphany.
Oh, yay. So we turn that perfective marker on. That doesn't, it's not like the ED. In English it means, oh, it's past tense. In Tlingit, the perfective marker means we're talking about this thing purely as to whether or not it happened. So now we could go plus or minus. Say it did happen, didn't happen. That's all we're doing. It's not about time. It's just saying, let's look at that verb this way. Did it happen or not? And so now we're doing all of these it happened type of verbs. But they're not time references, and sometimes that gets us a little bit scrambled. We're in the unscrambling business.
Oh boy.
Okay, maybe we'll finish this one then and we'll probably be done. So, chodishich would be I bathed. I think, did we get to we bathed? Didn't have to be together. That's not being said here. Watudde, right? Watudishich. You bathed. Yiddishich. Yeah, owe. Y'all bathed. Ye dishich. Okay. He or she bathed. Again, there's no object, so we should expect w. Woodishich. They bathed. Hus woodishich. People bathed. And that d must now turn to the minus d version. Would do a shuch. So here's the key. Like here's all of these, and so there's a couple of pattern identifying things that we do here. One is we have chwade, watude, yide, yide, woode, haswoode, wadua. So if we just sort of ignore the fourth person, because it's got that little exception, all of these are going to be the same down here. So we're going to get to, so there's an object, so there's going to be awa right here, or aude is what we should expect down here. But this is going to, we should expect chwadati, watudati, yidati, yidati, audati, hasaudati, waduati. Okay, this is how we learn how to predict this stuff. And what we're doing is we're sort of saying, okay, there's all these different components, but if I keep looking at examples and I have to guess them, pretty soon you're not guessing, you're calculating them. This is the math part of your brain is putting these together. And so the fun part, and there's lots of fun parts, is now there's the zero version and everything else. So let's say this was an S group. Chwase, wutuse, yise, yise, wuduse, or sorry, wuse, haswuse, and wududze. If this was an S plus D, chwadze, wutudze, yidze, yidze, wudze, haswudze, wududze. L, chwashle, wutushle, yishle, yishle, wushle, haswushle, wududle, right? There's just that consonant makes that shift. That's how you signal the classifier change. There's our keujituk. Maybe you could say keujituk, but maybe that's too literal. Like my brain blew up, like, you know. But to get those katle itch, maybe you could say that. Tut katle itch. It sparkled inside me, like just to sort of when those things start to click, and it's a fun time because you start to realize more and more of the language, but then you just feel like there's this huge field out there. Like all of a sudden you made it over the top of this little hill, and you feel so awesome. And then you see like there's this huge mountain range. It's like, oh, there's Mount St. Elias. Or
Go gooch.
Hooch, gooch. Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, and so party time. Until we get better, This is one of my sticking points is there's not a lot of people celebrating the fact that you're getting this. And that's one thing we got to change. And it'll be unfortunate. It'll be fun for us because we're the ones at the party. But it'll be kind of sad for us because we're like, what was my big party when I freaking nailed the perfective, right? But these are some things that we do have to figure out because this is you joining the group of Tlingit speakers. This is what it's all about, manufacturing language. You can get to this point where you start to be familiar with more and more. But now we're doing this pattern building stuff. But if you just keep trying, and then as you go in to these stories, and we start looking for them. So there's a perfective right there. There's a away would do ziku. Oh look, there's the d. That's why it went plus d, and ku. Oh look, that's high. That must be a zero group, a zero conjugation class. It is known, right? It is known, right? Anyways, so Thursday, foodie stuff, less technical. We won't get in. Tuesdays are our technical, hit our brain with the hammer over and over kind of days. And then Thursdays, we're just going to try and talk. So try and put a thing together that involves food. We'll start by each sharing a string of language, and then we'll just move through. I'll bring some things. We'll all sort of bring some things, and we might be able to get someone to come visit with us or something. But cheesh.
One more thing.
Yeah.
So for it hasn't happened yet. How many tenses could that be?
So it hasn't happened yet.
Well, the minus I.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so
future, you said,
Uh-huh.
or negative. I'm just wondering.
So here's all of the minus I verbs. Almost all of, let's just start with the plus I because there's not that many, right? The plus I, you have state imperfectives. Yak A, now you hear that classifier. I'm good, right? Yanik, ya, you hear it right there. Tle, seen, it's strong. Because the plus I, like it has to be that way to be that way. So the plus I gets activated because, yeah, it's in that state. Right? And that's why the verb types are another thing to look at. All the perfective positives, she or he did it, or it happened. The potentials are kind of weird because it's just this whole group of kind of bizarre forms, and we just have to know that they're plus I because we're talking like if that thing happens. Now that's what we're talking about. Everything else is minus I. So if you look at these minus I versions, these are the ones we're going to use in everything other than the perfective, basically, and the state verbs.
I have to read this all again next week, but it's making more sense.
Right? Okay. It's Chi Shuhan, Shigartustin, Dachun Yakik.
Did I see you on the TV channel for the high school the other day? Is that you?
Oh, I think so.
Doing an announcement?
Huh?
Like doing an announcement? I could have sworn it was you. Like on the was it, did you go to JDHS?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they did. One of my students recorded me talking about NYO, so I don't know what they did with it.
Oh,
Yeah, I
wow.
saw it on TV.
Okay.
I was like, oh! It was cool.